Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hustle on Purpose podcast, where we bring you knowledge and encouragement to help you better serve your family, your business, and your community. I'm your host, GT Ikard, and today we have a very special guest with us, Matt Johnson.
GT, how's it going?
I'm good, man.
Good.
Thanks for being here. How are you doing?
Yeah, happy to be here, for sure.
Awesome. Let's jump into it because I know we got a bit of a time crunch today. So
Sure.
just tell us a bit about yourself, your background, your history, what you've got going on, anything you want people to know about you.
Sure. Well, Matt Johnson, obviously. Just been in real estate now for about 6-7 years. Been flipping houses for the past 5 years or so. Done about 7 projects now. Every day is a little bit different in the real estate world.
Yeah. Where'd you grow up?
Grew up here in Little Rock.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Went to school at Mississippi State, moved to Dallas for a little bit, and then moved back to Little Rock about 6 years ago and decided to jump into the crazy world of real estate.
How has that been, your real estate journey? Let's dive into that a little bit. So how'd you start? How'd you get into flips, and what all do you have going on right now?
Sure. So I got into flips because my mom kind of, we'll call it recreationally, did flips, for fun. Made a little money, but I can probably say that she didn't have the business in a business sense, more of just a fun project sense. But was pretty successful in that, and I learned a lot through her, and then got into real estate and knew that was kind of, one great thing about, real estate is there's tons of different avenues that you can go into, as
Tons. Right.
So, that was one of the avenues that I knew that I was going to get into.
Yeah. Well, if you're a real estate agent, you already have knowledge and connections when it comes to buying and selling. So
sure.
For you, it was just kind of like figuring out all that stuff in the middle. Like, okay, I've got a project.
That's right.
That I think I could do some work on and sell for a profit.
Mm-hmm.
So did your mom already had some like connections with vendors, contractors, all that kind of stuff?
Yes, but I actually just kind of went with all new ones. The first couple that I did, probably tried to do more than I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
I was the one pulling the permits. I was the one subbing everyone out. And, I think that there's the first project that I did was a little big, was a fairly big project for my first project. It was a full gut. It was a full transformation.
You just went for it.
And just kind of went for it.
Yeah.
And learned a lot of lessons in that.
Yep.
Really the biggest thing that you learn is kind of the timing of everything, of when you need to get certain guys in versus other guys, and pulling those permits and everything.
Yep.
And so learned a lot like that. Now I kind of like to get maybe 1 or 2 contractors in there to kind of take care of most of it, and just kind of observe that project, make sure that all the timelines are still going well, and that we're on track. So it's kind of if I get all different size projects where it is a complete remodel versus ones where I'm just going in there and redoing a bathroom and painting. And those are the ones that you can kind of work it yourself and sub it out versus, if you have a big project. You might want to bring in a contractor.
Right.
Save you some time and a headache. And
it's easy to, it's one of those situations where like hiring a contractor to manage a project for you, I think it's easy for people to look at it and say, okay, well, that guy's charging me X amount of dollars, and how can I justify that? Or that's too expensive or whatever.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people that are just getting into it, I think, don't realize is, because it's harder to quantify what they're saving you when it comes to time and expense of like if you don't know the order of how you need to do things, if you're putting your flooring in before the walls are painted, well, like you might get paint and scratches and stuff all over your floor or whatever. And the cost of that stuff's harder to quantify what could be saved.
I think the way that I quantify it the most is the time frame.
Yep.
of when they're able to complete the project versus what I do if I'm trying to do that myself.
Right.
You know, it'd take me 6 months, and that first project did, where if I just would have had a contractor come in,
Right.
he could have done it in 2 months. And that would have saved me, you know, every month you're paying the bank probably,
Right.
unless you're working with cash, you know.
Yeah. But even then there's the cost of having your cash locked up into something and not in something else.
For sure.
And that 6 months, you could have been focusing on finding your next deal
project,
or doing something to make more money, right?
For sure. So I'm sure everybody has that different, you know, time frame and how they like to do things, you know, and it takes a little time to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. The thing I'll commend you on, though, like I love hearing stories like that, because even though you weren't completely prepared, because you'll never be, it's like you did it anyways, and through the doing it, you learned a ton, and any project you do from there on out is that much better for that. And you get faster, and you learn how to talk to contractors, you make relationships with contractors, you can negotiate prices better, you can oversee what they're doing better, because you know what's right and what's wrong, and when somebody's BSing you, basically.
Exactly.
Right. Like it's easier to take your car in for maintenance and have a good conversation with that mechanic when you've worked on a car before.
Yeah.
You know, we all know
that's a good analogy.
The trope of like women getting taken advantage of when they take their car in because they don't know anything about cars.
Yeah.
And the
contractors will do the same thing to you.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. So yeah, I'm all about taking action and like figuring it out as you go, because you'll just, you know, we talk about analysis paralysis quite a bit, and like also like you mentioned, there's so many avenues to invest in real estate and do things, and it's so easy to just get bogged down in like, well, what's the right thing to do? And you know, especially right now,
a little tunnel vision, huh?
Yeah, when people are like, oh, like what's going on with the market and interest rates and all of that, and it's like, yeah, like they're changing, they're fluctuating, but don't let it.
I mean, they say like now the best time to get into real estate is as soon as possible.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like that old quote about like, when's the best time to plant a tree? It's like, well, 20 years ago, the second best time is today.
That's right. That's right.
So it's like, yeah, do it today so that future you's happy that you did.
And you know, obviously, getting into the market is the right time, or at the right time is important. But I think, you know, just getting your feet wet at any point in the market, whatever, whether it's high or low, is necessary.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. The other thing that you kind of touched on is people get, it's common with, it seems to be with flips, but also with rentals. A question I get all the time is, how do I know what to do to that project to get the most bang for my buck, right? Because in flipping, it is a business, and in rentals, it's the same.
Sure.
But you have two different outcomes you're going for. Like with rentals, the saying I always have is, we're going for functionality and longevity.
Yeah.
Like if a renter walks in there, every drawer needs to open smoothly. Every light switch needs to function the way it's supposed to. Like the heat and air needs to work. You know, everything needs to work the way it's supposed to, and it needs to be able to stand the test of time.
Yeah. There's definitely so many variables, you know, when you're trying to decide, you know, what to do. And I think time frame plays into the number one. You know, do you have 4 months to flip a place, or do you have 2 months to flip a place? You know, and then also, you know, what you buy it for, I think, is the most important thing. You know, I think if you get a really crazy deal, and, you know, also what you can sell it, what you can buy it for, and what you can sell it for. You know, whether what kind of market you're trying to sell it into, in terms of just the area, perhaps, you know. If I'm trying to flip a place in the Heights, I'm probably going to have to do a lot more to it than if I'm trying to sell a place, you know, in a lesser, you know, after repair value area.
Yeah, start with the end in mind. Like,
Yeah, the end in mind is
know that going in.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I'm buying a house in the Heights that needs a total gut. That rehab's going to cost significantly more
Yeah.
than the house in 72217.
Yeah.
That
and stick to your guns, you know. Or if you have a plan going into it, kind of stick to that plan. See if that plan works first before you kind of change it. You know, especially if you're not doing much to it, you know, to the property, go ahead and do that. Do paint. See, you know, you can test the market, and then if you need to do more later, you can do more later.
Right.
You know, I'd hate for someone to get in and do, you know, a bunch at the forefront, and then, you know, sacrifice their time and overshoot their budget
right.
in the end.
Yeah, you can't uncook a steak.
Yeah.
Like, if you overdo it on a flip, it's really hard to go back and like sell expensive materials that you already installed.
100%.
Right? Like
100%.
It's way easier to. What I tell people is like, start with the end in mind, like I said, and then also have multiple exit strategies if possible, because especially the market we've been living in the last handful of years, you know, we've gone from being able to sell a cardboard box for $300,000 to now like everybody's scared because interest rates are high and inventory is low and the market's stagnated, right? If you're holding a flip or multiple at once and the market's doing crazy stuff, for me, I was doing flips, but I stayed at a price range where if I couldn't sell something for what I needed to for the flip to make sense,
Sure.
I could make sense of it financially to rent it out and have like the staying power to hold it either until the market comes back around.
Having a backup plan, right?
Right. Like, for instance, for me, for those flips, it was like staying under a certain price range for our Little Rock market, where like a rental could still make sense.
Yeah.
So it wasn't $700,000 houses in the Heights, because it's really hard to make one of those cash flow as a rental.
Yeah. And you definitely have that mindset. Probably, I mean, a little bit more than I do for sure about holding the properties and whatnot. How do you kind of find projects usually?
That's a good question. So we use the MLS, obviously. I'm licensed, and two other people that work in my office are licensed. So we're all over the MLS. We've got pretty specific buy boxes we're looking for the long-term rental portfolio.
Sure. And
the main thing there is just, I mean, we can analyze those pretty much from the computer.
Yeah.
I've done enough rehabs where we know my average cost per square foot for renovations, like in certain area codes.
Sure.
So
and are you always looking to renovate and create some equity in a place that you buy?
Yeah. So for me, my whole strategy is, I'll borrow hard money when it's necessary.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense because a lot of times the deals that I'm targeting for those rentals, to be competitive and to have a chance at buying them and to close them quickly and get them be able to negotiate the price as low as I need to, the benefit I have to offer the seller is making that process as easy as possible.
Yeah.
So
100%.
it's giving them cash. We're not bringing a bank in to do inspections, appraisals, all that kind of stuff and banks draw that process out, like for your conventional home buying process.
100%.
But I'm comfortable doing that just from my experience in doing like 600 home renovations. It's like I feel comfortable in Little Rock that I've seen just about everything.
Yeah.
And we can plan for it accordingly before we buy it.
What kind of is that target price range that you'd like to stay around?
So for me personally, my wife doesn't believe this, but I'm pretty risk averse.
Sure.
So for me, the least risky asset class is affordable housing, single family rentals.
Yeah.
So in the Little Rock market, That's typically, I would say our typical deal is buying a house in the $50,000 to $70,000 range, putting $20,000 to $30,000 into it, and having the house appraised for about $100,000 after it's done,
Sure.
and renting out for around $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
So that typical deal allows me to, in a short amount of time, we've got people, systems, processes in place to handle those renovations quickly. Everyone knows the standard that I'm looking for, that functionality and longevity that I talked about is just something I harp on. So those rentals, we get them functional and able to stand the test of time. And then I can get a resident in there, go to the lender. The banks are way easier to work with after you own the asset, right?
Refinance it.
Refinance the money out that I owe the hard money lender.
Yep.
Pay him back in full plus interest. Have the loan with the bank.
Like a cash out refinance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is.
Sure.
So beforehand, starting with the end in mind, just make sure those deals are going to have enough equity on the back end to, do my 75 to 80% cash out refinance and have that pay back the hard money lender.
Yeah.
So in theory, when it works well, I've got no money in any of those personally.
Sure.
Hard money lender's paid back with interest, so he's happy and ready to loan me money again.
Yeah.
And the bank's happy because I've got a tenant in place, the property's cash flowing, they get their payments every month, and they're ready to loan me more money when I have more properties to refinance.
How many properties do you have right now?
Single family rentals, I've got 86.
Okay. And I know that getting that ball rolling is kind of the hardest part sometimes. What kind of advice would you have,
You're turning this into like me getting interviewed on the podcast.
I got questions too.
Yeah. Advice to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
First off, education. So for me, the only way I was able to get started the way that I did was I went and worked for somebody else that was doing this.
Yeah.
It happened to be a large investment company, but through that, kind of like a ramped up version of you with your mom, like you saw your mom doing some flips, I was able to see it started off as 1 to 2 properties a month getting bought and renovated, and I was overseeing all that.
Sure.
By the time I left there, we were doing 22 to 25 a month.
Yeah.
And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I mean, it was a brutal job.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean,
that many.
If a renovation takes 60 to 90 days and we're buying 22 to 25 a month, that means we've got 50 to 75 active projects going on at once. And when you're talking about single family rentals, they're in 8 different cities in the Little Rock Metroplex, and there's 8 different municipalities and code offices and 27 different utility companies. And
you're doing it from start to finish too, in terms of everything. Yeah. I mean, end goal, finding a tenant and refinancing it and everything. That's a lot for that many properties.
Right. But the experience was amazing.
Yeah.
Because I got to get a ton of knowledge on how to renovate properties and manage them, and
time management.
Right. And so what that allowed me to do is I was looking at all these properties. Some of them didn't work out for the company I was working for. And I was like, these could work out for me because I don't have to do things the way they do them. All the different strategies you alluded to earlier.
Sure.
Some of them would work out for me, and through the connections and stuff that I made while having that job, I was able to find a hard money lender. I tried to go the conventional route, but it was so difficult with properties that needed work and properties with tenants in place. Doing the conventional route was really difficult.
Sure.
So that led me to finding the hard money lender, creating that relationship. And cause we were in 2 different seasons of life and 2 different skill sets. He didn't have time and knowledge, but he had money.
Yeah.
I had time and knowledge, but no money.
It's a good pairing.
Right. So together, that's grown into something that's been really mutually beneficial. And that allowed me to start getting some of my own. Lots of mistakes made along the way, but you just you jump into it, you figure it out, you keep pushing, keep making progress.
Sure.
And I was able to leave my job and haven't looked back. Now we're just rolling. And
that's great. I bought my first rental last year.
Awesome.
And
Congrats.
Thank you. And then sold it about 4 months later.
Yeah. Okay.
Or 5 months later. My girlfriend actually lived in it for a little bit, and I had planned on holding it.
How did that go?
It was fine. Okay. It was fine only because I was able to sell it for more than I bought it for. Which the market was changing. I definitely bought it at the high point, April or so of last year.
Right.
Things were crazy. I think that
they were crazy.
It was in Midtown, kind of off North Hughes and stuff. So it was a great rentable
that's an
area.
Awesome area.
And
like K-Mac Village kind of area.
A little further south.
Okay.
But, kind of like in between there and Park Plaza. Where Park Plaza used to be. Kind of adjacent to Catholic.
I know where you're talking about.
Across the street from Hall. And it was it was one where I kind of learned what not to do. One, I didn't
don't rent to your girlfriend.
Well, yeah, I mean that wasn't the
issue. Okay.
That wasn't the issue. But I bought it. Like I said, it was that was just a crazy time because if you put your house on the market, you got 6 offers. You were selling $150,000 house. You were selling 10, 15 above ask.
Yep.
Which I don't think we're really seeing that now by any means.
It's different for sure.
It's different, and I think that place was listed at 180, and I ended up paying 190 for it. And not creating equity in it, I was like, this could be trouble. Like I can rent it out right now for and cover my basis, and stuff. But if the market drops, and I paid 190 for this, and now it's worth 175. I didn't want to be in that position right off the bat, so I was able to sell it for like 210, and just figured now it was probably. But I'm definitely it's got to be the right deals that we find that I'm able to create some equity in it, but it's at a nice price point where I can rent it out for $1,300 or so, and I only have 150 in it or so.
Right.
So I'm kind of looking for those deals versus if I have a project that I'm trying to, sell for $365, I probably will just go ahead and flip it.
Yeah. You'll find something, especially right now, like everyone's freaked out with high interest rates, but it's a good time to buy in my opinion.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
Everybody always wants to hear like crazy stories. Do you have any crazy real estate related stories? Any, you don't have to mention any names, but any crazy?
Sure. Man, I don't know if I really, I have one crazy story that actually really kind of helps me. And it was, it's actually the biggest project that I was working on. And, it was in Hillcrest, and it was, probably about a year ago now, year and a half ago. And the back of this house was all glass. It was like we're talking 25 feet by about 15 feet of just all glass.
Wow.
And the windows on there, I knew that I was going to have to replace some glass on there. And at least in this one little section. And it was going to be really expensive. And I showed up one day, and no lie, there was a bullet hole in the glass over there. And I mean, who knows how it got there? But the bullet was sitting in between the two panes where it had gone through one and hit the other side.
Wow.
And just kind of fell down. And so I guess it was shot up from like
a distance,
but it's right over. It's looking over the Rebsamen area, and it's up on the hill on Hillcrest. So if somebody just could have popped off a shot, just some little kid or well, not little kid, hopefully, but we're talking, maybe like
somebody on the Rebsamen golf course got a hole in one.
That's right. Got really excited.
Sam.
Yeah. So that was probably the most interesting story that I had, where I was able to, from there file a police report and call in insurance, and insurance took care of the windows.
Really?
That I was going to have to replace anyways. So that was the most fortunate crazy story.
Yeah, because
windows
are expensive anyways, but the last couple of years it's been one of those things.
Yeah, and that was That was a big window spread. So
Yeah, it worked out.
it did.
And nobody was hurt, so it's fine.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I had completely forgotten about this, and I'll tell it really quickly. But so when I worked for this investment company and we had all these projects going on at once, one of the project managers I was overseeing goes to a job one morning, and we had the company would sell the houses to investors all over the world, right?
Sure.
So those investors are never going to see this house usually, so they would always get a home inspection,
Yeah.
just to make sure the quality was where it needed to be. And
Yeah.
that was great. Like, we welcomed that because it was feedback on our quality control.
Yeah, for sure.
So this project manager goes out to the house that morning because the home inspection was scheduled for that day. So we always had somebody go through, do a final walkthrough, just make sure, like, it's got a new air filter. We're not going to see something dumb come back on this home inspection that some investor in California is going to see and lose their mind. Right?
Yeah.
He pulls up to the house and the police are there and they've got the whole thing caution taped off.
Oh my goodness.
Goes and talks to the police, explains that he's the project manager. Like, he puts me on the phone with them. I explain like what's going on. And so one of the contractors that had been working on the house, one of their guys that worked for them got the lockbox code from working there or whatever, had gone in there and had like a party with like his girlfriend the night before.
Through a rager, huh?
Well, just the two of them, just a two-person party.
That's a two-person party.
But it apparently got wild. There was some kind of, I don't know. I don't know if it was an altercation or what, but the guy says he accidentally shot himself in the leg. He's fine, but our project manager shows up that morning. The cops let him in, and the cops had everything they needed. So he's frantically trying, luckily like the floors were concrete. So he's frantically trying to like clean all the blood off the floor and get everyone like
before the home
inspector shows up. But
yours beats mine for sure.
Luckily,
That's
everyone was
wild.
okay. I had forgotten about that story as well. Everyone was okay, and like that vendor, we didn't work with him anymore, and everything. Home inspection went great.
Wow.
And everything worked out just fine.
That's a pretty crazy story.
Yeah, pretty crazy. How can people find you? You're with a new brokerage.
Yeah. So
you want to talk about that? How can anybody watching this that needs a realtor can hit you up?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. My email is matt@eagleroccar.com. And my phone number is 501-765-5044.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would love to help you guys.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming, Matt Johnson, and for sharing with us. Thank you for listening, everyone. We hope this helped you be more equipped to go out there and crush it. Be sure to go check us out on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, etc. And remember, guys, hustle on purpose.
Yeah. Thank you, GT.